Up, weebs and casuals alike, and welcome to the most glorious, chaotic podcast this side of the digital universe. We are Baka and Company, and we're here to dive into all your favorite anime shows and movies. We'll cover both new and old, and everything in between. I'm your big bug bad boy, Drutendo64. On deck, we have the high-flying Frankfurter. And last but certainly not least, it's our grizzly old mayor of town, Magically Average.
You can't just say anything normal when you get introduced, can you?
No,
Like
I
nothing.
can't.
No.
Oh, Frank.
No.
Not me.
Nope, never. Hello, everybody.
Like Frank's first thought before we started recording, he's just like, all I'm gonna be thinking about is the song, and then sang it before we started recording, and then the first fucking words out of his mouth were that goddamn song again.
See, but the funny thing is,
Just let it roast. Just let it cook. Come on. Just
But
you gotta ease into it. You can't come out the gate swinging like a madman. Just chillax.
To be fair, before the podcast, I said that I was going to have the song "Tailspin" from the old Disney show "Tailspin" stuck in my head.
Which I wasn't even part of that. I don't care. Why was Tailspin stuck in your head?
We don't want to go down that bunny hole. Let's just continue.
Okay.
All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. It is not a Studio Ghibli film. It is technically a Topcraft film. However, all of our favorite friends like Hayao Miyazaki are directing it, writing it, and our music is by the one, the only Joe Hisazashi, whose name I practiced earlier today.
I was just about to make a comment that I think in every single episode we've recorded, you pronounced his name differently by like the smallest of margins.
Ever so slightly.
Yeah, I like it. I just assume it's a running bit now.
Well, that's what I'll try and do from now on. I'll try and not mess that up. So
next week is going to be music by Joe Hibachi.
And then by James Hitachi.
Ah, that's even better.
And just the cycle goes on, much like the circle of life, which is an integral part of this wonderful film. So,
thanks, Owen Wilson.
minus the lions, though.
What?
The Circle of Life is like this movie, and then I said minus the lions.
Holy crap! You made my brain fucking short circuit. Shut up! If it didn't mess up the recording, I would mute you in Discord so people could not have to listen to you blabber on about nonsense. Holy moly!
My brain is.
Drew, what's this movie about?
What this movie is about is essentially the companionship that humans should have with nature and how we should respect it, we should fear it, we should love it, and all that fun stuff. Nausicaa itself is based on a manga that Hayao Miyazaki produced or made or authored or drew or did stuff with.
Created.
There we go. That's the word. I'm wonderful today. Thanks for asking.
We are all wonderful.
Wait. Don't group me in with you two goobers.
Okay, mister, my camera can't work, so let me plug it into another Yamate Kurosai port.
That's a technical issue. At least my brain is able to function and click on all levels. Meanwhile, yours is actively melting, and I can see it. And Drew's was never there to begin with because he's paper. Okay, so I don't want to hear from either of you.
Yeah, start crying.
Yeah, Drew's like Patrick from the one episode where he has to keep drawing on the wall. He's like, "Damn it, my watch is out of battery again."
Are you mad, Patrick? Yeah, I can't see my forehead.
I'm literally gonna start crying. Continue, please.
All right, so a little bit of backstory. This movie is all the way back from the best year on record, 1984. And it was produced by the team over there at Topcraft. Fun fact behind the scenes, a lot of the limitations that they had were that not all the animators were in the same studio, not all the animators were in the same town. So they kind of had to crowdsource a lot of the animation, send drawings to each other because certain people would only be paid per cell. And so if you wanted to obviously make money, you'd do more work. But in order to do more work, you'd have to know what you were doing. So They were sending cells back and forth, getting information from everyone. That's why you do see a couple hiccups and things changed, like the color palette a few times, and then most notably, Nausicaa's outfit. So that's one of the big things that most people didn't know about until the film got released worldwide. A lot of people just accepted it. Things happened. So, way back in the before times, Walt Disney Pictures licensed and dubbed a lot of the Ghibli library, and they asked to do this one. So back in 2005, a lot of us got introduced to the wonderful cast of the English side of things, and we have people like Shia LaBeouf.
Are we gonna just real
Oh
quick?
yeah,
Are we
sorry.
gonna glance over the atrocity of the original English version of this movie?
I didn't watch it. I didn't
So,
want to
but
touch it,
do
mainly
you know
because
about it?
yeah, they basically did their own dub and their own story. It was
This movie single-handedly almost caused the United States to never have another Ghibli movie. And that was because it was heavily re-edited for the United States to where Shia LaBeouf's character Asbel was the main character and Nausicaa was just a side thing. So yeah, it angered Miyazaki so much. Like I believe he sent a samurai sword to or maybe it was the next movie that they sent a samurai sword to whatever studio it was in the signs of like, yeah, no, that's what it was. The next movie he sent a samurai sword to whatever studio that was publishing it in the United States and basically saying no cuts. You're not recutting this movie. But yeah, this movie really almost fucked up the United States for Ghibli releases.
and honestly, I'm very happy that people were able to like come back, redub it, and make it like true to the form and actually let people like us and you experience the true format because there's a big thing that I've started to learn recently that Toei Animation, which Topcraft is involved in, and this movie was distributed by Toei, they do a really bad job with storing and protecting these old animated films, whether it's a series like the example I saw today was Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. So Sailor Moon's pink hue that a lot of us North American people got to see is not natural. It's actually due to the media degrading and it not being stored and kept correctly. And then Dragon Ball, a lot of the stuff for Namek, the sky's not supposed to be green. It's supposed to be blue,
Hmm.
like a cerulean deep blue. And it, again, same thing. They didn't store stuff correctly from the 80s. And then when people started dubbing in the 90s, things got out of hand. But back to dubbing. So we have people like Shia LaBeouf here as well. We also have very weirdly Uma Thurman as Kushana. We also have my favorite Patrick Stewart here as Lord Yupa. So it's great to hear him. Nausicaa is by Alison Lohman. And then we have just a smattering of people in between, but out of left field, Frank Welker's in this film. So gotta love Frank Welker being the guy that he is. And
Always
then
a good time.
oh, he's beautiful. I love his voice. But I saw where is it here? Um, filibustering.
I mean,
Oh,
Mark Hamill.
Edward
Oh,
James Olmos is in here, and like, why? Like, it's such an early time when the dubbings were done. I don't know if there was the excitement to be like, hey, I get to be in a Ghibli film, but he's there, and then very quietly in the back corner, we also have Mark Hamill in here.
again, another Mark Hamill appearance,
Yeah,
which I
and,
love.
and then the old lady's played by Tress MacNeille, and you might recognize her from The Simpsons. So she's got the classic old lady voice
And Futurama.
and Futurama. Yeah. So the cat
Yeah,
lady, or even she's mom too, right?
She's a ton of she's mom. She's a ton of voices. She's wonderful.
I got 2 shares of this here, kajiggers. Um.
please,
Anyways,
please pronounce that word.
yes, I did.
Anyways,
And so diving deeper into the plot, so we get introduced to Nazca, and she's doing some really cool stuff, like harvesting that bug carapace or the bug eye there, and using it kind of like that shield.
Ohm.
Ohm.
Well, we find out that it's an Ohm later.
No, we
Wait a
don't. She literally says it's an ohm right there.
I'm
Oh.
sorry, right? Just give me a break.
right.
It's honestly like working with two fucking
I know.
monkeys right now.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Ohm.
Oh, but
Sorry.
that's one of the things that drew me into the film was just the direction and how she's using found materials. It kind of goes back to a lot of my favorite games are Monster Hunter games. So originally, when I was younger and I saw this film, I was really heavy into Monster Hunter. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a Monster Hunter film. This is interesting. She's going to make armor. She's going to make doodads. She's going to collect things."
A
Absolutely
bunch
not.
of little cats are gonna cook her big meals.
Yeah, man, those cats. I love those cats. But to kind of talk about my favorite part, I just love the whole airship thing. I just love the designs. I love the mechanics. I'm very heavy into mecha kind of anime, and just seeing how the airships from the opposing city, or it's not a city, it's like a warring state, just bulldoze in all those tanks, all the armor that the occupying forces were wearing is just something that really like drew me and excited
Mm.
me about this film.
Of course, you'd like
But-
the villains.
Yeah, exactly. And then third time around, second time around, fifth time around, watching it again this week, I get treated to like more of. I enjoyed the story. I enjoy what it's like trying to touch base with and saying that as humankind, we need to be better. We need to take care of things. And I didn't know until I started researching it, but one of the main themes is pollution, and it's related to like an actual environmental crisis in Japan where like this mercury poisoning was going directly into like
Mhm.
a food basin of an entire village, and unfortunately people got sick. And Miyazaki hasn't been someone to kind of shy away from these kind of themes. He's very vocal about protecting the planet and being a champion for being better. And it's great to see that he started this so early on, that he was like a champion for a better planet, and that he's continued it to this day. But that's my ramblings and why I love this film. Magically Average.
Yes.
Why do you love The Valley of the Wind?
Or not love.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. I like it because you can't tell what time period it's in. Apparently, something happened 1,000 years ago from when the story is currently taking place, which is called the 7 Days of Fire, and the Earth was basically scorched and started over, and then all this stuff happened at some point. But you've got an old-timey-ish village with simple folk, but then you have very advanced airships, and then you have knights in armor with swords, and then you have tanks. Like, who knows when this is taking place? It's all over the place, but
Yeah,
I
but
like-
a simple village doesn't really necessarily need a militia or like tanks or anything like that. But yeah, the
Well-
swords part is really kind of out of place.
yeah, but I like that it gives more mystery to where everything's taking place and when everything's taking place. I feel like a lot of Miyazaki's later films, you can pinpoint to a specific time period, most of which obviously take place in Japan, and there's like clear historical events happening around that time to where you can give it a timestamp and be like, okay, so I kind of have in my mind a semblance of when things are taking place.
Sorry.
Nausicaa is like the only one off the top of my head that I can think of, other than like, maybe, like, I don't even know. I'm trying to think. It's not Spirited Away, no, because you have cars. It's a normal
Maybe
town.
Princess Mononoke. But even then,
no, not really.
They're like at the turn of technology
Yeah.
with cannons and
Mhm.
guns. And all
Yeah,
that.
so you can kind of pin place it. Honestly, again, like because the story is at a time in which they date back to 1,000 years of being like the restart of life on Earth. You can't really gauge within this 1,000-year period when this is taking place, or if it actually is the Earth that we know. It's more fantastical in its placement in time than the story itself, which I kind of like. It's a very different take for Miyazaki, where Miyazaki does more of like the here is a time period that everyone knows. What happens when we throw a giant fucking raccoon monster in there and a cat bus? Ooh, imagination. Like, Nausicaa's different. It kind of flips it in the sense that it's more relatable. Well, I shouldn't say relatable, but there's less fantastical elements in what's happening, but more in which the time period it's taking place. So that part I like the most.
Yeah, and I think you can kind of relate that similarly, because we were grasping at straws as to what movie to compare it to. Castle in the Sky would probably be the best comparison, because you did have this technology, and then all of a sudden it kind of disappears, like almost as if like there was like witchcraft and like technology existed, and then they had a big battle, and then everything went kaput, and now
it's
just
like it's like the similar in the sense of like Legend of Zelda, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Where there's like advanced technology from a former time period, but now you're a certain amount of years in the future, and it's been kind of a restart or a rebirth of that of life itself. So that aspect I enjoyed of the movie. I think the other piece to it is that this is 1984.
Yep.
Yeah, 1984. I like how I say this in a positive way, but I like how grimy it is. Like there's a lot of like audio elements that I really, really like. The one scene that sticks out is when Nausicaa and Oswald fall through the quicksand to the like underlayer of the poisonous forest, and they're eating these little seeds or nuts, and you can hear like they probably just were like, here, grab something crunchy and eat it into this mic. Because it's like, you can tell that this person's just crunching on something while they're recording, and there's like no clean take of it. It's just, it kind of feels like a 30-year-old mukbang. Like way before 40-year-old, excuse me. I can't do math. 40-year-old, like it's just so grimy and so raw. There's a lot of other parts where there's multiple people talking over one another or like in the background. That seems to be, again, something where they just had a bunch of people talking all at once. They recorded it. We're like, all right, cool. We'll splice this in on top of what else is happening. And it doesn't sound clean. It sounds very natural. And I think that's probably the best word to describe it, is everything seems very natural in terms of the audio. And it makes it feel like a more grounded film, that they weren't trying to do a lot with it, but they were doing everything they could with what they had, and it almost made it even better. That's not even taking into consideration the animation, the colors. We were talking about it beforehand, that there's only like 63, something like that, colors used? Question mark? Help?
263, I believe. Yeah.
Got it. 263. So yeah, I like that it's just, the bones of it are very, simple, but they were able to do so much with it. A lot of scenes really play out very nicely. I'm thinking of like the ending scene with the Ohms when they're marching and then they all subside, their rage subsides, and they gather around Nausicaa, and that's the famous part that Frank sang earlier, where she's jumping through all of their weird tentacle things that turn into a golden field. Like that animation, like right there, was just gorgeous. And it's crazy to think that this was basically 40 years ago that it was made. So no, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I watched it back in college, and I liked it back then too, when I was still new-ish to Ghibli films, because I wasn't introduced to them until much later in life. So yeah, definitely up in my top 5.
Fair enough. I probably wouldn't rank it as high. I think I like the message the most in this one because it is so clear cut and like
the message that every single other fucking Miyazaki
Right.
film has. Don't
Right.
hurt
But-
the earth.
Save the planet.
Right,
But it's literally just don't hurt the earth, and then all the movies are bullet point, here's something that happened, don't fucking do this. And then next bullet point, another thing that happened, don't fucking do this either.
Okay, but in regards to the theming,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
more so was saying like this is more clear cut. Hey, don't fuck with the earth. While others like have semblance of it, and it's a little bit buried sometimes, or there are other themes surrounding it. This is just purely don't fuck with the earth. Let Earth heal itself. Just let it be. Let it grow. Let it be. Let it do its thing. And I think I like that a little bit more than just adding multiple and multiple and multiple things on top of one main theme. So for me, I think since it's like the most clear cut, I really enjoy that. It's it's a good movie. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's clear cut and simple. Like the best way to describe this movie is very simple. Um, I do like the audio for it. I think that the sound effects of how like synthetic they are and how kind of like pew pew like type almost Star Warsy ish like kind of synthetic. It really draws out a little bit of your childhood of what you used to watch because this is again 40 years. This isn't like 40 years old, Tyler. This year it is 40 years old.
No, I know. It just
So
it's shocking. It's shocking
yeah,
watching it and realizing that.
it brings you back to a simpler time where technology for sound effects weren't as advanced, so you kind of had to deal with what you could, and I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy that. The voice acting is pretty darn solid in this, even for the English voice acting. The music by Joe Hisaishi. I don't know if that's how you. I don't know, dude. Yeah, I can never pronounce his fucking name. And he's the best, but yeah, no, another banger of a soundtrack. Not his best, but I mean, to be fair, this
It's his
is the
second
first.
movie.
This is the first for Ghibli. Well, I say Ghibli. This movie basically founded Ghibli. Like it
Yeah,
did
exactly.
so well that it provided the funds to start the studio. Um, so with him kind of like taking the reins of the first Miyazaki movie, we'll say. I know it's not Miyazaki's first directorial movie, but you know what I'm trying to get at. Anyways, I enjoyed it. It's simple. It's good. It's not the best, but it's fun. It does not similarly to Castle in the Sky, where it's like you can listen to it and know you will know exactly where you are in the movie, but it doesn't flow as well with like what's going on screen sometimes compared to like Castle in the Sky. So again, I think it's a good movie. I think it's just somewhere in the middle. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just somewhere in the middle for me. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think
No,
it's
I
a
hear
fun
you.
movie. I think the first time I ever watched this, I don't know if I was in high school or if I was in college, but it was somewhere in the early 2010s. So somewhere in that range is when I first watched it. I thought it was good back then, and I think that my opinion of it was good has not changed.
Okay. Well, there's a couple other production notes I wanted to also bring up. Like I was saying, there was people paid for their artistic talent to get everything up to date and bring the movie to what we love and know. So they were paid per frame, and one of the biggest things that we found with that is one of the notable animators was Hideki Anno, founding member of Gainax, who went on to write and direct Neon Genesis Evangelion. So like dipping his feet in here, getting himself solidified, and he was working on the specifically the God Warriors attack sequence, which was one of the higher points in the film and was like one of the more challenging things for them to do, because even if you watch that now, you can see like how the energy charges and how well like it's done, because it also is now the classic anime beam attack where like the beam cuts through a bunch of things and then you see the explosion, which is always super cool. But I also wanted to let you guys in on this other tidbit: is it did make a profit. It did blow the box office away for what it did. And Miyazaki was asked almost immediately, like, hey, do you plan on doing a sequel? Is this like something you want to see go into fruition? And early on, he did have those ideas. And I was reading back in 2011, unfortunately, when he got very sick and he thought, this is it. I'm literally going to die. He told I lost the name here. One of the other people that worked on the film is like, you're more than welcome to take Nausicaa over, and you're allowed to like go on and make a sequel if you want. And then he got better, and then those plans kind of got shelved, and we haven't really heard of it. So I wonder if, in all of his great wisdom and knowledge, if he ever does retire from retiring and actually retire. It would be really cool to see the sequel be the last film he makes. That's just where I kind of.
He'll retire when he's dead. Honestly, I don't think.
I don't
think
want
there's,
that to
like,
happen. I don't want that.
nobody does, but it's honestly probably what's gonna happen.
That's probably the most ideal situation. You hear a lot of stories of historied people in certain professions that retire, and the 40, 50 years they spend in that profession, them not doing it anymore, just like immediate. It's really, I'd much rather him just keep going. Make movies until you're
Okay.
80, 90, 100. Keep going.
Yeah, I just think it's more so he connects better with making movies than I feel like he does with people sometimes. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why he does it.
And I don't want to see any sequels to the Miyazaki films. That's just me.
But wait, there's a prequel.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to talk about that. Anyway, I think for the final film, as opposed to doing sequel to Nausicaa, you do the real one, the real 360 motion, go full circle, and make a movie about destroying the Earth and fuck the Earth.
Well, that's what the prequel is.
We'll do it better then.
It's a 10-minute short film by Hideki Anno, and
that's not a feature film. That's a 10-minute short.
I'm looking at some of the screenshots for it because it's a live action film.
It's
wild.
We are not watching a live action film from the early 80s.
No, it's made in 2012. It is a Godzilla man in a suit type looking film.
It's definitely not watching that either.
It is horrifyingly awesome looking.
I want a film where a girl similar to Nausicaa comes out and it's just like, all right, well, time to kill everyone on planet Earth, and it's just the worst types of pollution you could think of and wipes everyone out. That would be the real full circle for Miyazaki to close it all out.
But honestly, they could make a sequel because this is based off a manga, and it's 4 volumes long, and this movie only covers the first volume and a half. So theoretically, like, they could just redo the movie and make a whole regular ass movie based off the manga, or
this movie
make
was
a
already
sequel of.
So it was already 2 hours long.
I know, but you can cut out some of the. Well, no, because I do like the panning shots.
Yeah, all of it was really good.
All the nature shots are really nice.
Yeah, there's honestly no Ghibli film that I would want, that I've seen. I should specify that too. That I've seen that I would want to see a sequel of. Partly because I feel like if there were to be a sequel for any of them, it would almost be a reason to correct mistakes that were made in the initial film. Because
Porco
Rosso could just be deleted from the library and that would be fine.
I love Porco Rosso. It's just a fun movie.
You just single-celled membrane.
Smooth brain.
Yeah. Because as we've talked through a lot of the Ghibli films, we keep having the same sort of repeated feedback and comments to Miyazaki films, which is like, it's clear when the storyboarding stopped and when just all hell broke loose, and then there's a wrap up, right? Because there's very specific films that are like that. A lot of the very popular Ghibli films are like that. But again, I think that gives those films a very distinct identity. So going back and being like, we're making a My Neighbor Totoro 2. It's like
Totoro.
God.
Boo.
Okay.
The mom has cancer again.
Stop.
Oh Jesus, dude.
Like, I feel like if My Neighbor Totoro 2 or something to that effect, like even Spirited Away 2, a lot of the popular ones were to come out, my immediate reaction would be that this is a correcting point to address some of the gaps or misses in the original, and I don't think I would appreciate it as much. I can understand if there's still story left to be said. Fine. Totally relatable. I get that. But my immediate reaction to seeing any sort of sequel to what's been released currently would be, this is just to put band-aids over the big oopsie from the original. But that's what we like, the oopsies. That's gives it that Ghibli feel. Like, we're so used to films now being like incredible in the beginning half, still great in the second act, and then a mad rush in the third act to the point where it's a fucking blur and then it's over.
Yep.
It's basically like the biggest amount of foreplay and then the worst blue balls in your life. Like that is the very crude explanation of what a Ghibli film is like. It's hour and 45 minutes of just foreplay and teasing, and then 5 minutes of getting blue balled and getting kicked out of your seat. Like, all right, head home, get out of my fucking theater. Like that's just my take. Nausicaa, I guess I can understand if there is still source material left that they could go off of and continue. But yeah, maybe to what you were saying, Frank, maybe it would be better for them to just do a re-release of the original with
like
maybe
a remake,
yeah, maybe make it like this might make people cringe. Maybe make it like the Hobbit films. It's like, just do 3 different parts to it. Split it up.
I thought,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why I thought you were gonna say like Attack on Titan. I was gonna be like, do not.
The final part of the final chapter of the final season, part 2.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mother of pearl.
No, I just, yeah, my brain just cringes at the thought of doing any sort of sequels to what's out. I think that we can all agree what's being released currently, the most recent being The Boy and the Heron, is a very good sign that there's still plenty of new ideas and great stories to be told by Miyazaki. So much so that you don't have to rehash an old film to do some sort of continuation, stick these 2 puzzle pieces that don't really fit together and make one, bigger story. I'd much rather see the new ideas and the new imaginative pieces come to life than there's another fucking bathhouse for the girl to go explore because her parents got turned into horses this time. I don't know. Some dumb shit. Roll with it. That's what I imagine Miyazaki's like. He's like, all right, Bathhouse 2. This time, her parents can turn into horses.
No, I agree. I see what you mean. Like, a lot of what they do stands and speaks for itself, and a lot of these films have those souls because we know there's not going to be anything else. That it is self-contained. That it is this one adventure. And I don't think, I feel like this is a big lesson to North America for films, because the movie factory that is Hollywood seems to think anything and everything at least needs a sequel, a miniseries, a comic book tie-in, or in some way additional media to make you understand and completely get a story, whereas we don't have any fun self-contained movies as much as we used to. Like, the 90s was literally the throw stuff at a wall, find out what sticks, and like, let's make movies. Or even the early 2000s with like all of Waterboy, I think, was the 90s, but you have Wedding Crashers, you have Old School, you have Anchorman, you have like I Love You Man, I think, is later, but it's that generation of like goofy weird movies that people were just making literally to make. And then all of a sudden Disney buys Marvel and Star Wars, and they're like, well, you have to watch these 18 episodes to understand these 6 episodes to understand this movie. And people are like, no, man, I just want to absorb and consume content. Like, I don't want to like schedule my day out for it.
It's the difference between having enough money to burn thousands of villages with, and just enough to produce masterpieces.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then earn enough to then make another masterpiece, right?
I mean,
Like
it's the
that's
problem
a
with
completely different engine between
it's the
Hollywood and Japan.
I was gonna say Hollywood is just they're playing everything so safe right now. Like the only thing they're just burning and churning old movies over and over and over again, and the only studio that seems to give a shit about movies and making something new and refreshing is A24. Like they're the only
Yep.
things that we have that it closely resembles anything artistic anymore in the United States.
I mean, we're also getting lower and lower uh, in terms of the amount of directors that are producing anything of value anymore either. Honestly, like it's the list keeps dwindling down because you see directors, actors, different studios being like, yeah, sure, we'll take this shit heel of a story and make something out of it, I guess. How much money are you saying you're going to give us? 150 mil? Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you see there's much more care and patience put into making media in many other countries, not just Japan, but many, many other countries. So yeah, it's this is why I feel like this is why, yeah, it is unfortunate, but this is also why we are such fans of a lot of media outside the US. Obviously, Japan specifically for the podcast, but like there are tons of different shows, movies, content that is generated outside the US that we prefer. At least I prefer more than what I
agree.
watch most of the
I
time
agree.
here.
Yeah.
So,
No.
yeah.
We're all in agreement there, but I think for final thoughts for me, it's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. It's just go into it knowing it's a very simple, not necessarily open close because there is more material, but like they do for all intents and purposes tell an open close story with a very simple premise and theme. And if you can get behind that, you'll thoroughly enjoy yourself. If you want like a complex, oh my god, because they took one step on the desert here, it did a butterfly effect in Neo Tokyo or something, and now I don't know. I don't know where this brain ramble was going.
Brain
you're looking for-
scramble.
I thought you were going to talk about the beach that makes you old or something.
Yeah.
Thanks, M. Night Shyamalan Dong Dong.
Yeah, but anyways, it's one of those things that if you're looking for something deep, you're not going to get it here. But if you're looking for something light and fun, you're going to get it. Like that's buckle
That's a
in.
good. Yeah,
That's
I
what you're
agree.
getting.
Light and fun, probably not the best way to describe it. There's a lot of death,
Probably
a lot
not.
of destruction. But I agree from the standpoint that the message is very clear. You don't really have to think too deep into it. Right? You're not having to like turn over rocks and scour through the desert to figure out what the fuck the meaning of this movie is. It's very plainly plastered everywhere in every scene. The one thing I will disagree with is that I think the story is a bit more complex. It has a lot of very, I guess, consistent themes that other movies use. You have a very clear hero's journey with Nausicaa. A lot of other elements that are shared across films of that time period too, where there's warring nations and a threat level beyond recognition. Like that's not anything uncommon, but it's the pairing of all those different elements into this one film that I think makes it really intriguing and complex in that regard. Again, message, straightforward, story, there's a bit more layering to it. And I think that's what I can appreciate a lot about it too. And again, if you keep it in perspective that this movie came out 40 years ago, it's Miyazaki's first directorial?
Second.
The second.
Second.
I knew that. Second film. Not Ghibli. I knew that. That's not a
There you
Ghibli
go.
film. All right. I got that. If you keep that in perspective too, and take into consideration all the limitations, I think it is an incredibly impressive film from a cinematography standpoint. But again, like it's good. It's not groundbreaking. You know, if you just watched The Boy and the Heron and then you go watch Nausicaa, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is this?
Humble beginnings from a humble man.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, I think if you keep everything in perspective and can appreciate the finer details of what went into the film and how the film was produced and then the outcome, I think it is a very, very spectacular film. Definitely worthy of a top 5, Frank. And yeah, everyone should just go watch it again because it's like kind of the beginning times of what then became Ghibli.
Yeah.
And
Also, never mind.
no,
Dumb
go for
comment.
it. Throw in your
Just
dumb
a
comment.
Very,
You started it, you finish it.
Tyler, I was gonna tell you. You said it was a threat level that could not be imagined, and my brain went to the joke. Is it threat level midnight?
Midnight with Michael Scarn.
Okay, that was my joke.
I
Drew,
have the record
final
button
thoughts?
to turn on and off, and I was so tempted to just hit it off right there before any sort of
Drew,
sign
final
off.
thoughts, buddy.
Final thoughts? I like it. It's beautiful, it's colorful, even with their limited palette. It's a film that I'll always enjoy. And I think if you're someone who is interested in the animation and how movies are made, it's also a great one to research and learn. And just it's overall one of the safer Ghiblis I feel like introducing people to. And I had fun. So I want to thank everyone for coming out, being the best part of the team and loving us, sharing that love, whether that's on the apps or that's on social media. Remember, you can always send us an email. Send it to Baka&Co podcast at gmail.com.
Nailed it.
And I want to thank everyone
Flawless.
for everything. Have a wonderful
Everything,
evening.
everywhere, all at once. Thanks, everyone.
Threat level midnight.
We're done.